Hey
Hello,
TG, how
hello,
you
hello.
doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to the submissions.
Yeah, just in time. Yes, we're in time in here. Just a little side note. There's like 3 spots left to submit your song, so if you want to go for it, because I'm gonna close it very soon. I wasn't expecting so many submissions so far because I just opened it recently, but you guys went fast, so yeah. All right, so I guess hey, Pasoni's here.
Yeah,
All right, cool. Let's get started. So the first one we have is an ID from Emperor. Emperor.
okay,
Oh yeah,
let's do
hey
this.
R9. I saw your not I saw, like I saw that you submitted something and like it's like 3 big names. So I am awaiting something big. All right, let's start with Emperor. And let me know if the sound is okay for you guys.
In the dead of night, we make our journey. At the speed of light, it's going down. So won't you stand with me together? We'll take down this storm. We can withstand all the weather and much more. So much we can do.
Well, that's a great start.
That's a really, really nice start.
Yeah,
I love the vocal harmonies in the first verse, and
the
as
vocals
soon
are
as it
nice. Yeah.
switches to the build-up, it's like the piece of the vocal that it carries into the build-up. That's just one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, no, it was really nice. For me, I just think, I mean, it's an idea, so you're gonna continue to develop it, but I think to continue, make it even more interesting, to break the repetitiveness a little bit. I found in the breakdown, the drums were a bit repetitive. And then in the drop, you have like 2 parts. I didn't feel too much of a variation in the second half of the drop, which I know sometimes like you can go like an octave up or adding some effects and ear candies and stuff in between, which would be, I think, a good addition in terms of composition. Um, yeah,
I think this song could also use, again, this is just a creative aspect. You could also use some ARPs, and it might be a really cool idea to bring in the second half of that drop, bring in that click that you were doing with the vocal one shot, pull that into the second half to sort of just send that home, and maybe pull an ARP or something with that. This is just a creative idea. You can probably experiment with it and see how it
yeah.
goes.
Yeah, I also know you're not in the mixing stage or anything, but I think for me the lead felt a bit too. I don't know. They could use a bit more higher frequencies to cover a bit more of the frequency spectrum. So I would add some saturation, a little bit or something like this. But yeah, this is like the idea is really cool. Like it has the vibe. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, once you're in the future stage, I would highly recommend some evolution because currently the song sort of maintains the energy.
yeah,
But if you're maintaining elements throughout the track, you can always do automations or different versions of that track. You can probably play with the saturation or the harmonic entities of the particular lead to maybe spread them out a little bit. Just have fun with that so that this track evolves as it going forward.
All right. So next one from Carl. Love the intro.
Yeah. love the fact that we have a drum
Yeah,
and
this is
bass
gonna be your
suppression.
domain for sure.
This
So I'll
is
let
this
you
is
go for it. Yeah.
completely my domain. Yeah, I love the drum and bass. I love the arps that you're pulling in there, especially the fact that they're in the atmosphere. I would love to see some experiment with open space, where it's a lot more about playing with the negatives, because drum and bass is always just very cutthroat and it just sticks to you continuously. So always have like elements in there or spaces in there. Like you can have it in a breakdown or almost like a pre-drop where the track just opens up and fills in all of your stereoscope and then immediately goes back into the drum and bass, which is very mono, very straightforward, and it's going really well. I also love in the second drop when you pull in one of your growls, which is there. I'd love to see some evolution in that growl, specifically in the second drop, because it starts off a little cut off, almost like auto filtered, and then you can probably like increase the saturation or that. And while you're increasing the saturation on that, experiment with a chorus really works with those growls really well, because it's going to allow you to split it into different harmonic bands, and you can slowly and steadily just drive them further into the stereoscope. So you'll also have a stereoscopic element in your second drop, which will just play on both sides and will really keep that engagement of the listener to continue to the next track.
Yep, agree. For me, DNB is not like my super domain in genre, but to my ear, it felt like the drums could have been more in front. I don't know if it makes sense. Like it feels like they're a super important part in the song, but in the mix they felt a bit too in the back, maybe a tad bit too much reverb or something like this. And I think if you bring them back in front as the main element, I think it'll hit even more. So that was that for me. I missed a little bit of low end in the drop. I don't know if you could hear that too. Yeah, and
I'm going off like very small things. On my end, the drums felt fine in most places. They felt pretty upfront. You might want to experiment with the transient, though. Like use a tool like MACD or something to make sure that the transients kick through a little bit more.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, after I don't know if DNB is supposed to or not, but even if it was like super interesting, a lot's happening and all, I felt like I was missing some body in the drop. Sorry, you agree to that?
Yeah, I think it's missing like almost like a melody line or like a storyline, like just to bring in people
Yeah.
from outside DNB, because from comparing this from DNB tracks, this is a really nice track. And it has the elements that DNB has. I just feel to expand a little bit on who your audience is, you could probably pull in a storyline, which will increase the track length a little bit, but it'll give
I was gonna talk
something
about it. Yeah,
for people to hook onto.
I was gonna talk about it. Is it like too short for drum and bass? Or I know all the songs are getting shorter and shorter, but
Yeah, drum and bass is like 2:45 is like a pretty good
yeah, I
range for
would go
drum
a
and
bit
bass.
over two
Yeah,
minutes maybe, just so that because yeah, I don't know, but
exactly. I think you can definitely, I like that arrangement already, but I think
yeah,
it goes off too fast. So I think you can definitely include like a B section. Especially, I think that'll help you play really well with the open space that I was talking about. You include a B section in there where it's just open and you're gonna add a melodic line or something in there, or just maybe even just pull back that arps the way you did the intro, and then hopefully go back into the hype again, because you always need your audience to have a little bit of breathing space between your stuff,
yeah,
especially if you're performing this as well.
that'd be a good idea to have a bit more dynamic contrast. But yeah, next one. So that's the big one. Arvanius, Last Volts, and Arlane. I hope you
Yeah.
still hear Arlane. That's your turn. And yeah, damn. Let's go. expected.
Yep, it is a really nice track.
Yeah, that was
Arlene, I
that was
see
really
that
cool.
you're there in the chat. Can you also confirm for me that this is gonna have a vocal on top of it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I don't even
because
know,
I
but I know
definitely hear a
it's gonna have a
female
vocal.
vocal on top of this
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, really cool. A few things. I mean, arrangement wise, composition. Oh, yeah, my camera's gonna disappear here and there for a couple seconds. Don't worry, it comes back all the time. I don't know why it does this, but yeah, I mean, composition, arrangement, all this like works super good. I really like the little break that you had at some point. I think before the build up or something like this. I always love when songs have this, like it's a bit more dynamic. For me, there was just a few things. I missed like a more impactful start at the drop. I don't know, and I put that I could hear that there's not enough bass in the drop. Maybe that could come from there, or like a louder impact or something like this. But like I was really waiting, that the build up, and then it like hits you, and I missed this hit. And then there's competing frequencies for me in your drop, because you have the lead and you have a little high piano note or something like this. And those are really competing for the frequency, and it really like bothered my ear. Like I was having trouble focusing on one or the other. So if you just readjust this, I think it'll work better. But yeah, not a lot, to be honest, obviously.
I'm also gonna point out a really nitpicky thing
Yeah.
because again, I'm gonna have to like test the track out properly. But from what I can see from my metering so far, you also have a little bit of low mid rumble in the track, especially when it goes between the build up and the drop. And that might be the thing that's killing your impact, because you want to reduce
Yeah.
those low mids as much as you can, so that as soon as they come in the drop, it's gonna be a good bass impact, and that rumble might fix the point that PLV was making here. So you might want to look into that.
Yeah, but honestly, it's like, as you said, it's like nitpicky things.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
that's just a mixing
Yeah.
like thing that you can fix later. I also I wrote this down. In the second half of your drop, I really like how you played with the syncopation a little bit by giving it a one empty bar, but or one empty beat, my bad. But I would love to see a little bit more experimentation with the syncopation, in the sense that that might help also counterintuitively. It might help with the clashing thing that PLV was talking about. Try messing with elements by shifting them a little bit forward or a little bit back, just to reinforce the groove a little bit more, and maybe make space for different elements that you have in there.
Yeah. The guitar sample was really nice as well, at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's nice, yeah. All right, Zodiac, it's your turn. Google always does that on me.
What, did it do something again?
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, because I come to the screen, so I have no idea.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it here. It's a fun
Yeah,
track.
I have a bunch of mixing notes for this
But
one.
yeah, I was gonna say it's a fun track overall. Like the idea is really cool and all. But yeah, it needs quite some mixing work. I'll let you go first.
Sure. My primary one, which I think is going to save the track in itself, is the fact that I'd love to see more sub energy from the track.
Yeah.
And when I say the sub energy, I just mean like I don't feel the bass primarily, and if
Same.
I don't feel it on these headset, that means if anyone's playing this on their phone,
Same.
they won't hear it definitely.
Yeah.
So you would definitely want those low mids to come up. You might want to add in another element in there, or just an EQ trick might work on individual elements, but that's something that you're gonna have to experiment with in your track. My second thing was a creative thing, which was play with the negative space a little bit. I really like how everything is working so far, but I would love to see a little bit more, almost like it's 80% there, but I need an extra 20% in there just to catch people's attention. And the last thing that I've written down was your drop feels less in like amplitude than your build up does, at least on my end, which might just be the bass coming in and going because you have
Yeah.
different bass elements in the build up and the drop. I would say try and get it just in the mixing state so that the build up is a little bit quieter than your drop, so that your drop, which is supposed to be the most energetic part of your track, hits a little bit more and increases the energy rather than decreasing it on the dance floor. It'll just help people groove more to the track.
Yeah, I agree on this mixing point that you meant that you did. That's what I had written here. I was saying as well, maybe to try and make it a bit more interesting, play more with the stereo and those, like those negative space, have something in the stereo, or like to have a bit more bounce, like someone was saying as well. That could help with this. And I thought in some drums parts there was a bit too much reverb, which were then putting them too much in the back. But yeah, otherwise everything that TG said as well for the mixing, and yeah.
I would say again for the syncopation part, like especially adding a little bit more bounce, try shifting your second and fourths just a little bit out of the grid. Everything feels four to the floor here, which can be a little bit of an issue when you're trying to make a track which is like bouncy, goes from left to right. So always try pushing them a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, I'm not saying a full beat. I'm just saying just a little bit out of the grid, just the seconds and fourths, so that it reinforces the groove that you're trying to build. And try layering them with your some percussive elements which are just slightly off grid, so that it gives people something to hook onto and just reinforces the groove. Because I think that's what's primarily missing. You just need something to reinforce the groove, because it's a pretty nice track and it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, it has a lot of potential. I think it can be really, really fun. Yeah. All right, next we have Nippo. Daily every hour idea. Oh, that's really short. 28 seconds. Okay.
I
That's
think
an
Nippo
idea.
mentioned, I think they were in the chat previously, that they mentioned that they just have an idea.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's where your idea about adding a question in the form would come into play, because what kind of feedback are you looking for on this?
Yeah, because I like the
he said
idea,
I
I
missed the
like where it's
file.
going.
He said I missed the file, so maybe there's something missing here.
That is a possibility as well.
Because-
Always check your
yeah.
renders, guys. Always
Yeah.
check your renders and your uploads after you've uploaded them. Doesn't matter if you're already sick of them and that's why you're
Yeah.
uploading them. Always check them, because
Yeah.
I have done this multiple times, including client projects where I almost sent them a file which was just a solo track. And I've done this with PLV multiple times where I've sent PLV just a solo track. So always check your files.
Yeah.
and don't trust the system. The system is out to get you. Check your files.
All right, so the next one is a demo ready from Enej. Yeah, the vibes overall are super nice.
Heck
Yeah, super,
yes,
super nice.
Alan Walker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Alan Walker. I think more than I think I saw Porter Robinson before, but I think I'd say more Alan Walker.
Yeah.
But
I wish they were in the chat. Are they in the chat by any chance? Because I don't see them.
no, I
Because
don't
I
think so.
genuinely want to know which Vocaloid synth this is. Because that's definitely, at least I would say I'm 80% sure that's not an actual vocal.
Yeah,
That's from a Vocaloid synth that they've written in the lyrics and it's
I
sung it
agree.
out.
I agree. Yeah, it has that vibe. Yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah.
that's most definitely a Vocaloid synth, and I would genuinely don't want to know
This is
which
nice.
one
Yeah, it's
because I think there's better options available in the sense that I think the groove and the way the Vocaloid synth is saying stuff can be a little bit better, can be improved so that it feels a little bit closer to the track. Because right now, when I hear it, they just exist in separate spaces for me. The
yeah, I agree.
vocal are there, and standalone they might be nice vocals, but the track is there, and standalone the track might be a nice track, but it just doesn't mix for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few things to say as well. Like, I saw someone was saying missing some impact. That's what I felt for the drop. Like, I was ready for it, and I missed that little energetic, impactful drop. I think that's because it misses some bass and sub. And I think it misses some more mid, some more chords to have more body, and same overall, like especially in the breakdown. The guitar is quite thin on its own. So I think adding some more stuff to fill up that frequency will be helpful. And which brings me to one point as well. I think that the guitar and the vocals are competing for the same frequency in the spectrum, which it makes it really hard to understand what's the main element. So for this, you can like EQ the vocal, more like boost one frequency and then remove that frequency in the guitar so that they have more space. You can put the vocal more in the center, the guitar more on the sides, or stuff like that to help separate them. Yeah, and I think and the build up really missed some building up the energy, like the FX, uplifters, risers, maybe the bass that disappears, a little bit with like a bit more reverb and all that good stuff for the build up. It will also help you have a more impactful drop. And yeah, that was it for me for now.
Yeah, I generally never say this to people because I've seen this go in the opposite direction really, really badly, but I would love to see a little more layers in the track. I've
Oh
seen
yeah,
when I've said that to
that's
people,
what
they've
yeah.
added a lot before, and it's paralleling what PLV said.
Yeah.
But
It misses
right
like it's
now, the
empty.
track is missing a lot of the flow elements that
Yeah.
keep the track together. Like the fact that when the drop came, I had no idea that the drop was going to be an Alan Walker sort of style drop.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a flow improvement to introduce some of those elements earlier or in a different way. Just
Yeah.
adding a little more stuff. The track seems really stripped down right now, and I think it could use with a little more
Yeah.
things added there, just elements.
Yeah. Exactly. All right.
Also, B3RZ, I sort of agree. I am pretty sure it is the Hatsune Miku software, which is why I know that it can be used better. Because I've experimented with that myself, and you can get some really nice results out of it. Right now, this just seems really detached in my end.
All right. Next up, instrumental mix. All right. Let's go.
Love the piano already.
Yeah. A bit messy, but the chords are really nice.
Yeah.
Woo! Woo! I was not expecting that guitar. Interesting. It's funny because I don't know if I'm the only one, but like all the parts are really nice. Like all the parts are really nice here, but they all feel a bit disconnected from each other. Like it's three different genres every time. Do you get that feeling, or is it just me?
For me, it sort of worked because I really like that it was almost like it was reinforcing the melody. It might just be the fact that I was really distracted by how much I love that piano
Yeah.
and how much I love the violin top line that comes in.
Yeah.
I also have a tip for the guitars, but I'll come to that later. But I can see a little bit of flow work on the track, like I'd said with the previous one, where
Yeah.
I think it's a track that's really nice,
Yeah.
but you just need some elements to glue the other stuff together.
Yeah. Like you
It could
can.
also just be the mixing, because I have some mixing notes as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, but I think maybe if you take some elements from the drop and put them in the build up, breakdown, maybe it can help link all the parts together because I really felt like they were disconnected. They all are super nice, but feel disconnected to the previous ones. The intro piano is super beautiful. I think for me in terms of mixing, a bit messy in the like there's a lot of low end resonance like it's like you have a lot of lows and the sustain is all the time, so it gets like all the frequencies get mixed with each other over time, if it makes sense. So if you can try to control this, the piano will have will sound even better, because the intro is really nice, the piano is awesome. I thought that it was a bit too long in terms of the intro, like 30 seconds of like it's just 4 or 8 bars that repeats twice. So if you have this bar here of this piano, maybe for the first 4 bars have like a piano which is a bit more stripped down, just a couple notes to kind of like try to keep that building up, like keep adding some elements every 4 to 8 bars to make the arrangement more interesting over here. And then I think you can add more layers to the leads in the drop, because it felt a bit too thin. I think also having more bass will help to make it more full. And at some point, so you have a nice string, but it's only on the left side. Like in my headphones, it was only on the left side. And then I think when it stops here, there's something weird where almost everything for the amount of one beat just goes to the left
Yes.
side. Did you feel that?
I was gonna, I have a note about that,
Right,
where
yeah.
right before the build-up, it just cuts off almost
Yeah.
abruptly, leaving nothing.
Yeah.
I have a note about that for sure.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
last point, so you can bounce on it and go from there. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I would say primarily, again, I would say look at the tonal balance control. The track for me can be a really nice track. I can definitely see this being
Yeah.
a track that I chill out to, or when I'm going to work, I listen to.
Yeah,
But
totally.
the tonal balance control needs to be a little bit better. Your shimmer was a little bit missing for me. So shimmer, for those of you who don't know, is the highmost range. It's the last bunch of frequencies that are there. They are generally overused in a track, but if you handle them, it can work out really well. I like in my meter that I see right now, it's missing a little bit of those. So you can add a little bit of those in there, probably through some element or through something. The post-drop section, I know we just cut off on the post-drop section. I think for me, it loses way too much energy because the way I look at this track and the way I hear it in my head, I don't understand the direction behind it in the sense,
Yeah.
do you want it to be something that people play when they're going to work, or do you want it to be something
Totally
that a
agree to
DJ
that.
plays at a festival?
Yeah.
Because there is a place where it can be both, but for it to be both, if it has to be a DJ festival sort of an ordeal, you can't have that long of an intro, because I can guarantee you, as a person who's performed shows myself,
Yeah.
I'll skip through at least half of it, if not the entire thing, which sort of kills your motif of the drop being there in the first place. I completely agree in the sense that the drop lead needs some reinforcement. In fact, I feel every place the lead has been reinforced really well, other than the drop. So that's something that you can definitely look into. But I would say I really see a lot of potential with the track.
Yeah.
I think you just need to figure out which direction you want to take it into. If you want to take it into the poppy direction, which is fine as well, I love pop stuff. Then take it into that direction, and in that sense, the intro's fine. Maybe layer it with a vocal, or remove the low end, like PLV was talking about, clean it up a little bit.
I thought it was gonna be
Or if you want to
orchestral
take
even.
it into the show direction, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was even gonna be like cinematic orchestral or something like this from the beginning.
Exactly. I got
Like
that
an
feeling initially as
acoustic.
well, which is why I feel like there's a little bit of conflict in the way that he's making music,
Yeah.
that he wants to play shows as well, but he also wants to do normal stuff. And I'm saying normal in a very loose term right there. But I would say you can do both, but just maybe keep them as separate tracks instead of trying to mix both of them together, because it's a really hard mix to achieve.
Yeah. All right, so next one was Senso, but he sent me his Ready to Fall remix, so we're gonna.
Oh, have you already heard it?
Yeah, we already
Oh,
heard it
okay,
like
cool.
in the last live. He just copied the wrong link. So once again, guys, be very careful and
Check your
double check
links.
when you send your links like to labels or anyone, you know,
Yeah.
like if you want them to promote your song, like really be careful. Sanso, if you have the link, you can put it. Oh wait, you can't put it in the chat.
No, you
Maybe
can't.
try and send it to my Discord and I'll check it after. But yeah, in the meantime, let's go to Color House. That's gonna be for you.
I will find you in the darkest places, oh my love. I'll protect you from the darkest troubles in your life. I will find you in the darkest places, oh my love. I'll protect you from the darkest troubles in
That's awesome.
I have so many notes for this.
Yeah, but it's really cool though. It's
Yeah.
really cool. I don't have too
I
much.
love the track.
Yeah, I don't have too much, so I'll start first, say my 2 points, and then you can go
Sure.
on it. For me, the vocals missed a bit of clarity. I would push them a bit in like the 2K area, something like this, just to bring some more clarity so that they pop off the instrumental. And I was missing some higher frequencies in the drop. But yeah, go ahead. You have a lot to say.
So I completely agree with the vocal treatment. I think the vocal deserves just a slightly different vocal treatment. It's missing a little bit of that clarity. I think, especially Color House, especially with how many elements are there in Color House, it'll probably be worth your while to track space the vocal a little bit. Track spacing is when you remove the primary fundamental vocal frequencies from elements that have similar frequencies. You're just going to duct them down with an adaptive EQ or a multiband EQ, which only affects it when the vocal is playing. You can do this with a Pro MB. You can do this for free with TDR Nova. There's a bunch of options out there. See which one you like. I would say my biggest note that I have is this is Color House. It's all about the harmonics. I really like what you're doing in the second drop, but you feel a little bit nervous to lean into it a little more. I love when it goes from standard harmonics into widened harmonics, but it's just not there yet. I love the frequencies that you're using. Lean into them a little bit more. Just increase them a little bit so that it actually feels wider. And I completely agree with, I'm gonna try and say this, Xenia Music, that's Xeny, Xenea, their comment in the sense that there should be more stuff in the stereo field. Color House is one of the places where you can really experiment with it. Make sure that you experiment a little bit with the stereo field and just add some one shots or ear candy elements in there because
ear candy would be nice.
The track is gonna live on. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah.
But I love the track in general. Once it's released, I would definitely listen to it because I just lean into the harmonics a little more. You're being afraid of being a little crazy, but that's the entire belief system of Color House. You gotta lean into it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. All right. So next one, music by DZ. Don't like the melody of the first drop. I might change it. All right.
I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Don't leave me hanging. I need you now. I'm suffocating. My thoughts are loud. I need you more times. It's not my fault. Your highs are too high and your lows are too down. Oh my, don't let me go. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. Oh my, don't let me go. Don't let me go. Don't let me go.
The strings here in the little break, I would have them a bit louder though, because they were really cool.
I agree.
Yeah.
I especially I wrote that down as well.
Yeah.
Also in the first drop, just when you that low end. Sorry, it's fine. when you pull in that low harp, when you pull in that low end, there's horns there.
Yeah.
Horns have really, really beautiful low mid texture, which you're cutting out right now. And I think that will help you like maintain the tonal balance control a little bit more. Just take your low end texture off those horns and just let it come through just in the low mids, not in the subs at all. But it'll give your bass a little bit more texture. I'll let you say the rest of the points because I'm pretty sure we have very similar notes on this one.
I didn't have too much. I know on the leads, I think a bit more saturation would help them pop out a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know, or maybe they felt too compressed. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like it could pop more. Because I hear we almost don't even hear the drum fill either, which also some fills here and there would help as well. But I don't have too much to say on this one, to be completely honest. I love the vocals as well, like the little double harmonics or something that you had was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I have like 3 more notes. It's
Yeah, go
just the pre-drop loses too much for me.
Oh, yeah.
I understand you're
It was
doing the
hyping.
festival hype
Yeah.
thing,
Agreed.
but
yeah.
that's generally done on the mix while you're there looking at the audience feedback.
Really?
Yeah, it's literally done on the mix because you turn down the lows and the mids and then you build them back in. Or it's also just an effects called a low-cut filter where you turn it up, like as soon as there's a drop, and then you pull it back in just to reinforce the impact because some tracks are missing that impact. But it is losing a little bit too much there. I really liked when you did the vocal step up where it goes da na 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 na. But that just disappeared before it reached its peak, which is supposed to be the frequency that it's supposed to reach at and stay at, which also kind of missed it for me. I completely agree with changing the drop melody. I can see that you're not confident in it because you haven't introduced it anywhere in the track other than the drop, so it seems like a placeholder melody that you're still trying to come up with. I think you can come up with a really nice melody for this, but I would definitely say get that pre-drop a little bit changed.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, big potential on this one. Like, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I can see this being played in like festival scenarios. I can definitely see a bunch of festivals playing this. But it needs to have a little bit more syncopation in the sense that a lot of elements are lacking prioritization, where you need to figure out in which part of your track which element is getting that priority and if it's coming through or not. Because otherwise your track just gets really confusing and people don't know what to hook onto or what to latch onto.
Yeah. I somehow can't... Oh, there you go. Okay, I got the link for Senso, so let's listen to his now.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think Senso's in the chat, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, I have a lot of notes.
Yeah, same
Like I
here.
have 3 lines of notes. Yeah, I mean the creatively the idea, it's like an idea. Obviously, it's composition wise, it's nice. It works. But so I know the beginning is probably the extended mix. I thought the kick was way too loud in there. For little side notes. Also, you have one drum fills that is like so overused, like the like it is so overused. I know exactly where you took it from. So maybe
Same
to
here.
try and be more original, maybe try to use new samples that aren't too overused. I know Kashmir just released his new pack, so maybe they're not too overused yet. So maybe you can find a couple cool ones there. So in the breakdown, like it's really nice to have all those ambiances, that little arp loop and all this. It's really nice. But I think that compared to the piano right now, the piano is a bit less loud and the ambiances are a bit too loud, which should be the opposite. So I would bring down a bit the ambiances and brought back a bit the piano. Then in the build-up, your leads are like way too loud and not filtered enough, so they're really competing with the vocals. So if you filter them a bit more and just tease them so that the vocals are still the main element, but you hear a little bit the leads, I think it will work better in the build-up. Then in the drop, I was really surprised. I think it misses a lot of the mid frequencies and chords. I felt more like the bass and the leads, but it felt empty in between. And the kick, I think, is really thin. I would maybe even change the sample. I'm really not sure about it. I think it misses somebody. And I would also add more drums. Like I didn't really hear any claps, rides, those loops and all in the back, percussions, shakers and all that. So yeah, I think that's it for now. I think I would also mix a little bit more the vocals. I don't know if you did it yet, because I know sometimes I also do it at the end. But yeah, that's all for me.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the fill thing because a really nice fill trick that not a lot of people use, and I don't know why, so I'm just gonna say it out loud. Uh, Take fills that people have been using, only use some parts of it.
Yeah.
Put two fills together.
Yeah.
Cut off first half of some other fill and the second half of some other fill that sound almost similar, layer them together. Or if you want to be really creative with it, take two fills that are similar fills but slightly different, pan one completely to the left, pan one completely to the right. So that's going to give you a stereoscopic fill, which is going to feel different every time it hits, because the human or the listener is going to, like, their ear is going to define which part they're listening to, and which always changes because it's just too much information, and it works out really well.
Yeah.
For me, literally, I'm gonna say this as I wrote it. The intro is too muddy for the vocal to be that clean. That vocal is really nice when it comes through.
But yeah, that's I think about the ambiances. It also makes it muddy. So
Exactly.
clean the ambiances, because you have a lot, which is good, but make sure
Yeah.
to clean them.
I think PLV picked up on that, and I didn't even realize, because I didn't even realize that this was supposed to be an extended mix, because
Yeah.
in an extended mix, it's very clear that the only reason those things exist is for a person who's DJing or a person who's performing to be able to mix that track in.
Yeah.
And if it is that muddy, it's just going to counterintuitively do that. And once the DJ has played that once and noticed it's that muddy, I can guarantee you he's never pulling that track out again. So get the intro, especially just extended intro, as clean as possible.
Yeah.
I also noted that in the first verse, second half, as soon as you bring that kick in, there is a groove parity between the vocal and the kick. The vocal is just slightly different groove. It's still a 4x4 groove, but it's just a slightly different groove. So whenever you bring in the kick at 4x4, it just feels like it's a little bit off, and it just gives you that weird feeling where you're like, is something different supposed to be there? I also agree on Xenia or Xenia music's point, but I disagree with their solution, which is They pointed out that the vocal has trouble with
Oh
the
yeah,
S sounds.
just put a
I would
de-esser.
say just use a
Yeah,
de-esser
don't change the
instead of
vocals. Just put a de-esser.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
use a
easier
de-esser and
than.
don't swap out the vocal
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a very nice vocal.
I mean, the vocals are
Uh,
really nice, but it's also
yeah,
overused. I've heard it already many times, these vocals. But I know, vocals are
yeah,
hard to get.
exactly. I've heard them multiple times as well. I would just say try and experiment with a different vocal treatment. But if
Yeah,
if your primary issue is the S sounds in the vocal, just de-S them and
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
swap them out for different vocals. Learn how to vocal process rather than waiting or looking for the vocals that
Yeah,
fit your track the best, right?
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Just for the question of Sam, what's the full form of PLV? PLV is for Paris, London, Vancouver, which is a tattoo that I have here in my arm. And I had this for like, I don't know, the last 6 years or something, which are the cities that I lived in: Paris, London, Vancouver. So, yeah, when I had
That
to
is
choose a
really
name,
interesting. I never even thought
I
of
looked at
asking
my
that
arm
question.
and oh, there he goes. So, yeah. All right. Next one, culture rhythm. Rhythm? I think that's going to be for you.
This is me.
It's going to be your
This is
stuff.
rhythm. This is
All
back
right.
into dubstep, melodic dubstep territory.
Just one thing though. I think it's
Yeah.
released already. I said unreleased, guys. So we'll just go over quick.
Wait, is it released?
I think it's released, yeah, obviously.
Oh, okay.
So
Then
we'll
never
just
mind.
listen real quick and go over it real quick, but yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's fun.
All right. Okay. Do you have some notes on this?
Just a kick for me who like misses some punch
Yeah.
impact. I don't know. Yeah, or maybe the clicky toppy end. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead if you want.
For me, yeah, it's just I think the drop just needs a rework. I really like how you built up to the drop. The drop is missing a lot for me. I think it primarily is just the fact that it should really have a better kick and a better snare that is turned up in volume. Because right now it's something that doesn't really come through that well. So I would say just rework the drop. I like the things that you're doing in the drop. I really like that ARP fills as well that are there outside the drop. And love the fact that it's on a polyrhythm and it's not matching because that's something that we do in rhythm all the time. But I would not classify the drop as rhythm, at least right now. I think it's a lot closer to styles like Aiden William, Lesdek, and people like those. And right now, it just sounds like melodic dubstep. If you want to get it closer to rhythm, I think you're confusing rhythm just being that drum pattern. So maybe look into that. But if you want it to be rhythm, I would say get more, like, put more emphasis on your drums. Your drums need a lot more TLC here than the rest of your elements because I think you've got the rest of the elements fine. I would also say that it's a little bit too calm to be rhythm, but that might just be the fact that there is no aggression in the track because your
Yeah.
kick and the snare in the drop just don't come through. I mean, you can hear them, but it's like it's just not balanced correctly. They need to be much louder in amplitude, and it's just not, the track isn't sticking together. It feels like the drop, before the drop I really liked it, but the drop just feels like different elements from different tracks. You need something to glue them together.
All right. So the next one, we got yours, Job, but 5 months ago, 84 listens. Like, do you need feedback? Like,
Is it released?
I mean, it seems like it is. No?
No, it still seems private.
Yeah, well, no, he said it's released. I mean, no, still not sure. All right. All right.
Okay, let's do this then.
Darkness will hide away. In the darkness, where we can play. In the darkness, we'll hide away. In the darkness, where we can play.
All right. The drop for me was so unexpected. Did you expect that?
Yes, that's
Okay,
that's
interesting.
because I
So
I
unexpected
exactly
for me.
felt that coming, and I was waiting for it
All right.
because I've heard tracks like these so many times, and I
Okay.
know that they build up like it's gonna be a really nice house track, and then they hit you with the brass immediately.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say because it's definitely not my style. For me, the intro came on like super abruptly. Like I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So maybe smooth that out. I don't know. And overall, I think like you have that very repetitiveness which comes from the genre, but I think in those negative space, I think how you call them, to have some ear candy here and there or stuff happening would help make it more interesting and less repetitive. But yeah, that was it for me. I'll let you take the whole mixing thing because it's
Sure.
definitely
Job,
not
is
my
this
genre, it's
track
yours.
released or is it not released? Because I'm gonna base my like
No,
feedback on
apparently
that.
not released. I think it's been 5 months. He's wondering
Okay,
if
if
he wants
it's
to release
not
or not.
released, you really should.
See?
If you mix and if did you mix and master this yourself? Because if you did, and I don't know how serious you are about music, I would say take this to a mixing and mastering engineer, because there's just a lot of small things. If I start listing them out, it'll take too long, but there's just a lot of small
It's a hard
things
genre
with
too.
some frequencies somewhere, and like there's some resonances coming through in a couple of places as well. But I think you have really nice creative ideas
Yeah.
and you have really nice stuff. I would say find a mixing engineer in person instead of just sending them the track. It might cost a little bit more, but go with them and see when they're mixing the track and when they're mixing your particular track, because I think that's gonna not only teach you how mixing engineers do stuff, it'll also show you what sort of things you're doing in your track which they would have changed and how they would have changed it, because
Maybe
I
did you
genuinely see this track performing really, really well.
maybe let's try and give him some actual tips on the mixing that you would do real quick. Because
Yeah.
he's 17.
So real quick, I
Yeah.
would like, yeah, I have those written down, but the overall things that I would do, that was just a recommendation. That's something that you can do if you save up for it. I see that you're 17 with no money. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
But I would say look at your high end. Your high end is getting a little bit messy with your elements that you're playing with. Try and space them out. And again, it's going to be a lot more about the negative space, because the drop is going to be just to the point, right? You're going to be playing that melody and you're going to be playing with the groove because it's primarily a groove related genre. You're doing pretty well in that. Just get the mix a little bit under control. Look at the tonal balance control and see where your basses are messing up, because there's a bunch of bass rumble in there according to the meters that I have. I don't have a sub next to me. I would have told you where it is, but according to the meters that I have set up right now, there's a bit of bass rumble. You might want to figure that out. Just look at a multiband compressor and see what's happening. And other than that, try and get your elements to flow a little bit better. Maybe just a little bit auto filtering. Try and pulling in an EQ on each track and see where do you want this track to actually be going and where it is already playing right now. That might give you a little bit of a direction to calm that track down a little bit more. Because it's a really nice track and I can see it doing really well. You just
Yeah.
need to figure out that reworking.
One point as well, because like this genre is like really hard to mix. Like it's really technical
Yes.
and all. And he's 17, so only just
I
there,
don't
like it's great
I
job
don't
already.
I
like,
don't get it. You're doing
yeah, so you're
better
doing
than
great. I want to
90% of
point this
us.
out because we've said a lot about, like he said a lot about it, but I want to point out that you're doing great. Like you're
Yeah.
17 and you're
The,
making
I
this. It's insane.
yeah, I want to reinforce that as
So
well. It
yeah,
is genuinely really nice. I was shocked when he said you're 17.
yeah,
But yeah, that's why like that you have a lot of time
yeah.
and that's a
He's
really
like
nice
10 years
genre.
younger than me.
Yeah, you're younger than me as well. And I would
That
also
hurts.
say, as much as I love the fact that you have a 5 month track that is unreleased, I would say start
13.
working on more stuff.
My God.
Uh,
At 13, I
yeah,
was like,
because
I don't know, playing Pokemon or something like this, you know?
I wanna
Like people
see
are
you
making
release
music,
more
it's insane.
stuff.
You guys are doing great.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
no joke. If that's the kind of stuff that you're making, you're an artist I would follow without even thinking about it. So you're doing something right. Just keep it going. Work on more stuff.
All right. It's been an hour and we have not even done half of them, so let's go.
Sorry, you know I drag on a little bit
I
with
know.
my stuff.
All right, Danixan, it's your turn. I don't think you're here, but this is an idea, okay? All right. So I think obviously we have like a beginner here, but I think to help, it was very quiet as well. But I think the arrangement worked here. I would do twice the drop because that's how I like it, and most tracks have. But I'd say try to focus first because like it obviously needs a lot more. But I think before focusing on this, try to focus on setting the volume levels of all of your elements properly. I know, for example, the clapo snare was quite loud compared to the rest. And I'd say as well, try to spend a lot of time on sound selection. Here, overall, they feel like your sounds feel very electronic, like robotic. Like I think bringing some more like more interesting layers would help. Sound selection is really like a time-consuming thing to do, so don't hesitate to like spend time. And I think one thing that helped and that helped me when I was going from this step, to not knowing which sound to choose to choosing the right sound, is really to use reference tracks. And what I was trying to do is find a preset that would sound the closest to what that reference track had. And try to, add like a few of them and then modify a few things to like make it a bit different. But this is what helped me a lot to achieve like a better sound selection, which I think will help you a lot in this track. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything. I think
Yeah,
it's lacking in the low mids, which is something that, again,
it'll
with
come
reference
later, I
tracks, you're
think.
gonna figure out.
Yeah.
It's also primarily lacking in the mids as well. I know I can hear that you have the keys there in the background, almost like a superstar. It's so quiet, I'm not even sure what it is, but you can definitely raise that up. I would say add in some more elements. You have a lot of space to play with. This is almost like negative space. You have a lot of place to experiment with. So I would say
Yeah.
uh, good effort, but definitely increase that drop length, as PLV said, and get a little bit more elements in there. And I think the reference track trick is really nice. You should probably use the reference track for this.
Yeah, one thing as well, drum fills would be nice to add a bit more in the drums, in the drop. But yeah, I think other things will come after. But I think those little things will already put you in a better directions for the song. But otherwise, composition, arrangement, it works. All right, next.
Also, just saying this for Remy, I also wrote this in chat, but yes, all genres
Oh
are
yeah,
allowed, but I think we're
wait.
pretty booked on responses, right? Are we
Well,
still
it
allowing
might depend
submissions?
because I think some people sent more than one. Yeah, Cal Rock, we already had one of his, so oops. So and he sent another one here, so I'm gonna delete that one. Sorry guys, I just want to keep to one per person so that more people can get feedback because I know it's quite busy. All right. But Remy, you know what? I'm just gonna open it real quick. You have one song to submit yours. Okay, interesting.
All right.
So it's funny because in the title it says work in progress, but here it says demo ready. I don't think it's ready.
It's definitely not. Also, I can guarantee you, you don't have the rights to those vocals because I know the track that those vocals are from, and that's a very, very mainstream track that Sony Music released.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if you
it's
try and release that, they are going to really, really copyright the heck out of you and probably
but
take it down.
it's a remix. Maybe it's a remix contest. I don't know.
It's not a remix contest, PLB. I know the track.
I mean, I'll
I,
definitely like all the remixes. Like, I'm gonna leave this feedback session on my YouTube channel after, but all the
yeah.
copyrighted content will be muted, obviously.
Yeah,
um,
but that's a Hindi song. That's why I know what song that's from. I also know the movie that song is from.
okay.
Because for those of you who don't know in the chat, I am from India. Not currently living there, but yep, that is me. So I also know the lyrics of the track, which is why I knew exactly where that track is from. And no, you don't have the rights for that.
So
But even if
let's
you
go.
did, there's a lot of things that you need to work on in the track.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. So let's get to it. For me, I think that until like 1 minute 10, I think something like this, the music was completely repetitive. It was like the exact same thing going over and over and over again. So it was very monotonous, and you don't want to have this in the music because, like, I think after like 30 seconds, I would have already went to another one if I would listen to this, in a Spotify playlist or something. So you really want to bring some new elements. You want to remove some, have some dynamic contrast to make it more interesting. Because at the moment, it's definitely too monotonous. I think you can add way more elements as well, melodic elements to keep making it interesting. Keep building stuff because it's quite thin at the moment for me. But yeah.
Yeah, as PLV pointed out, you're doing something that I used to do quite often, and I still sort of have to stop myself from doing, which is you're relying on the listener listening to the vocal too much.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things, so you're thinking that the listener's primary focus is going to be on the vocal, so it doesn't matter if I just loop my track forward. So that's something that you definitely can't do. The background needs to be as amazing as the vocal is. And in your build up, you just had a kick there. It needs more elements.
Oh yeah.
It needs.
It,
It was just a repeating kick, which is something I have also done in a track
Yeah.
of mine. In fact, one of my first tracks was just a repeating note. That was the build up. So
Yeah,
I would
definitely
definitely
feel
say
unfinished there.
work on this track a little bit more. Remove the vocal, add a different vocal in there, and just rework the track. Get a bunch of reference tracks pulled up. See what other artists are doing and what other people are doing in the genre that you're trying to produce. Even if you want to stick to India, look at what the original track did and how the original track worked. And I also know that there's a couple of remixes of the original track in-house genres. So maybe look at those as well, see what they have done differently, pull those tracks up and just see how it's going. Also, I know mixing might be a little far-fetched for this, but I'm just gonna say that rework the mixing a little bit, see what's getting a focus and what's not. That's all.
Yeah. All right. Next one is Night Sky. Can't wait to listen to that one. It's a whip.
Let's do it.
Can we stay where the light is up all night just to find it? Can we stay where the light is up all night just to find it? I would go anywhere, anywhere to find you. I would go anywhere, anywhere to find you. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, tell me what you want.
All right. Pure Night Sky vibes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice. I guess I'll go first. I have a
Go
few
for it.
notes.
Because I don't have too many notes on this.
Yeah, I mean, most of my notes are mostly mixing stuff.
Same.
Because arrangement, composition-wise, I think it works mostly. Think you could still add a few things. For example, in the breakdown here, you have like just a kick and I think like a clap or a snare or something like this. In this genre, in this style, one thing that I love to do, and I think it always makes it more interesting, is to, like, I like to take maybe like 4 or 5 different percussion loops that I get from Splice or anywhere else, and each of them, I just select the ones that I like, the parts that I want, and then I recreate my own percussion loop, and which makes it more interesting because it felt a bit empty there as well, so I think it would help. Speaking about the kick as well, the kick is way too loud in the mix. And I would actually change for a sample that is filtered, or filter the kick, because I think it would work so well, like Illenium style in this type of music. So that's it. Same overall in the intro breakdown. There was a lot of low rumbles. So make sure to clean all your tracks with an EQ. I think it might be coming from the reverb as well, or your ambiances that you have. So make sure to remove those lows where they're unwanted, and also reduce the 200, 300, 400 hertz to avoid that muddiness over there. And it'll make the mix sound cleaner. Then for the drop, I really like the idea of the drop. I think it could use more. I think the vocal chop that you have could use like some more layers and like saturations, or distortion and all, to make them a bit more interesting, and I think a bit louder as well, so that they pop out a little bit more. I think if you add as well like the chords, I'm missing this higher screechy chords and leads that you have in this style as well, which would help bring back some higher frequencies there. And more definitely more bass and sub, which was way too low for that kind of drop that you're going there. And yeah,
I think you definitely covered almost every point that I wanted to make. The only thing that I'd written down a little bit in more detail was the fact that during the intro, the main thing that's messing up, at least from what I could hear, was the fact that you have a keyboard, you have a piano that's playing a piece, and it has two fundamental low notes.
yeah,
And you're running that through a reverb,
Yeah.
so those low notes are also getting reverbed out, which when you change the low notes, the reverb from the previous ones is still there, and it causes a clash. So I would definitely say either remove one of those notes if you want to make it a little bit simpler on yourself, just through the MIDI, and make sure that the reverb that you have is a high pass filter
yeah,
reverb, so that you're letting the highs through and you're not adding any reverb in the low end for that particular section. You can have reverb in the low end. I just think that's not a place for it right now.
yeah.
But yeah.
Which reminds me, one point I remember one day I sent this kind of track to some labels, and one who was interesting gave me a cool tip which is, in the first part of your song, you can have your low end being covered by the piano with those very lower notes, as long as you control them, and then only use like a Reese bass, and those electronic low end stuff more like in the second half of your song, to keep it a bit more interesting and make it different. So I know that was a cool trick that I remembered. And
Yeah,
actually,
definitely.
Xena as well has a really good point. That's also one thing that I do, I think, in one of my current track, where I took an acoustic kick and like just compressed it, put like reverb, and it makes this Illenium trick, which sounds really cool and could sound cool here as well. Yeah, that was a cool trick.
Yeah,
all right.
definitely.
Next, because we have some work to do.
What submission are we on right now?
Half, 16 out of 32. I'm
Okay,
afraid we're not
we're
going to
fine.
make it to the end, guys.
Lovely.
We'll do our best. like the idea of the drop. So I think the person's saying that it's just an idea for now.
Yeah, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
I would definitely turn down the intro stab, or
Yeah.
or just reverb it out, because your intro stab turns into your lead stab, and I would say I would say just for like the mixing side of things, it'll be really easy if you turn that lead stab down, and then on your master channel put a limiter so that you can bring the entire floor up with that lead stab being turned down. For me, the lead is so loud that everything else is really quiet compared to it right now. But I think that's gonna work really well.
Yeah, for me, the intro was too long as well. Like 30 seconds of a repeating intro is, I think, way too long. But yeah, I think I could have used some more bass in the drop, which is like
Yeah, I
good to
think
have
the
in this
bass is
song.
there, but it's just the
Oh, no, it
lead is
is
so
there.
loud that everything else is turned down.
Yeah, yeah. But I like the idea of the drop, to be honest.
Yeah, I like the idea. It's really rare to find people use. In fact, weirdly enough, we've seen two of them already in the submissions today. So you guys are doing something right. But it's really rare to find the single click lead sounds, like single stab lead sounds running through a drop melody, or running through as the primary melody of the drop, which was really interesting in this. And I think you can definitely play with it in the future, and like in this track as well. Just make sure that you're keeping the levels of everything else up, because right now you've tried to make it the fundamental element, and it's just led to everything else sort of being almost too quiet for the track to even really be like judgeable in other mixing and mastering sense.
Yeah. All right. So next one, we have Noisy Sound. I think. I love that
Noisy
name.
Sound is also in chat, right?
He was at the very, very beginning, which was like an hour and a half ago, so I'm not sure.
Because I
But-
remember reading the name.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's just stay with me in this town, this
Oh,
sound.
he's here. She's here, maybe. Interesting. I wasn't expecting that drop at all. I thought
I
it was
wasn't
gonna be
either,
like
but I really liked it.
I thought it was gonna be like a chill thing, which is absolutely great though. Really like it. But yeah. You did this on FL Mobile? No.
No way.
There's no way.
No,
I swear, some
no,
people
no,
on
no,
FL
no, no,
Mobile,
no.
like it blows my mind. Like I have no
I
idea.
was gonna ask which DAW this was in, because it has an element that I have
This is
I've been
insane.
looking for.
This is
No, there's like
crazy.
I'm gonna choose to disagree. I don't think you did this on Apple profile, but
He said, yeah, he doesn't have a PC.
Sorry,
Like,
it's gonna take me a second.
wow, this is like really, really, really cool. Like insane. FL Mobile,
Um,
insane. So anyway, hats off for that already. Yeah, I mean it was really, really cool. I don't know, super chill. I think most of my notes are mostly on the drop rather than what you had before, which was working really well. On the drop, I think to have a bit more dynamic contrast, especially in those when you go towards that genre. I'd have some breaks in the chords when the snare hits or something like this here and there to put some more contrast with like some drum fills or stuff. I was missing some highs in the drop, like in the chords, like a lead or something. I think maybe tiny bit more sidechain would help even more, having this like, you know, this headbanging that you want in the in this style. And I just reminded something and then I forgot. Oh yeah, the ARP. You have an ARP which is really, really cool. Where? Like at the beginning, like I don't know how to explain. It's like at the beginning it sounds super electronic and robotic and not the best, but then it transitioned into more of a softer, almost piano ARP, which I thought was working way better. So yeah, just this, and I think it was a bit too repetitive in terms of like, I think the ARP was there like the whole time, so I would probably break it off a little bit here and there. But yeah, it was super, super cool.
Okay, I have a lot of good things to say about this track.
Yeah.
And it's not just because it was made on FL Mobile. I still don't believe it. But there's a couple of things that I would have done a little bit differently. But my primary thing for this track is, in your drop, you have a really, really nice background drop ARP that you're playing, that is playing the chords really well, which I'm pretty sure at this point it's hand programmed, and which means you know what you're doing. I would say give that ARP more space. Let that ARP come through more. Let stuff drop out so that that ARP shines a little bit more in that place. It is the only thing that's playing in my head continuously, even though I've stopped listening to the track.
Same.
That ARP plays continuously in my head. And
Yeah.
I would say give it more space, because I like that ARP more than your intro ARP. And just, it's really nice. Quick notes though, on the +12 and the -12 vocal that you've done, it's really nice. The low end, the -12 vocal is too loud. You want to turn that down a little bit. And if you can, inside FL, send them, I don't know if FL Mobile is going to allow you to do this, send them to a bus track and then add your effects there so that the effects seemed a little bit more glued together, because right now the effects seem a little bit separate for the high one and the low one. I would say gluing them together, you'll get a much better, a little bit more consistent offer out. Also, use parallel reverb. I don't know how you're going to do this in FL Mobile. I will have to think of a way to come up with this. But the drums that you have could really use some reverb in the parallel. I would just say in the mixer, just send it to a separate track, and then use that as send only track, and then in that send add some reverb, and then turn up the reverb track. Still not sure how you're gonna do it fully, but that would be the way I would do it, because I haven't used FL Mobile that much. But that would really help those like pseudo orchestral drums fit into that section, and I would say add some more layers into that section, whether it be just stereo layers or just mono layers. It's a really easy way to create more space in an orchestral section when you create things that are meant to just be in the middle and things that are meant to just be on the sides. It just makes the entire stereoscope feel a little bit wider. But I honestly love the track. I love the fact that you've done this on FL Mobile. I honestly just can't wait to see what you're gonna do when you get your hands on a real DAW, and you are one person I am going to be looking forward to tracks from.
Yeah, no, that's insane.
That's just a really nice track. Yeah.
All right, next we have Xena, finally, because I know he's been here a lot.
They've been here a while.
Yeah, vocal will be added soon. Great, love the artwork. Ooh. Oh, deep house, nice. You're welcome. I'm afraid this part might be way too long though.
Yeah.
Here.
I think so I don't have the vocal yet, but I think they might be
Yeah.
leaving space for the vocal so
Oh
that
yeah.
once the vocal comes in, they can cut it down
I mean,
to
it
be
makes
a smaller
sense.
size.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
like to have a bit more of a down. Like I think it's great that you go here more down, but I think at half here you should start building up again because I think this is way too long.
I agree with
Of a
that
complete
personally.
break. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, otherwise, overall, it's really cool. Love the overall vibe, the atmosphere. Really cool. I think I thought maybe the hi-hat might be a little bit too loud, but depending when we have the vocals, like I could definitely feel the bass heavy vibe to it as well. Nice guitar. I don't have too much to say about it, to be honest.
I have a bunch of notes. Are we
Go
gonna be
ahead.
playing the drop or do
Well, yeah, I
have
was
we not?
wondering because.
Okay, no.
Okay, so that's the drop. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
being careful to the
Yeah,
muddiness.
my first
but-
question is just, are you gonna have vocals in the drop? Like, I know you're in the chat, so I'm gonna just ask you questions so that I know what I'm giving feedback on. But I have some notes other than that as well. So while you're answering that,
Yeah, go ahead.
your snare and clap that comes in the drop, I didn't realize that was the drop. I thought
Same.
that was like a pre-build. If you're not sure yet, I would
Yeah.
say definitely get your drop to to separate your drop from the track and see if it maintains that energy, because right now I feel like it is building up energy instead of having that energy, which is why I was a little bit confused when
Yeah.
after that, because I thought that was just a verse, and after that we just went back into a B section.
Yeah, didn't know the drop was the drop.
Yeah,
Maybe having
same here.
something
Do you need
different
to add some separators in there?
on the third on the last one as well would help to make it like a bigger drop at the end or something like this, because I know sometimes they do
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
I would
didn't
definitely
know.
say don't overdo it. Don't make it like big room where it is very, very clear where the drop is. But still add a couple of elements into that so that it's a drop. Or just be very clear in the sense that you're going to be taking it, instead of it being a deep house genre, you're going to be taking it to electropop. Because this works very well with electropop, because that would be the chorus section where the vocalist would be singing. So that's really nice. And the snare and the clap, depending on which direction you take it, the note that I have for that is they don't fit in quite yet. Maybe lower the amplitude a little bit and add a plate reverb on them at like 20%. The only reason I'm giving very specific details is you very clearly, the way I hear it, you very clearly know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially with the chords and everything working well, you very clearly know what you're doing. So I'm trying to be as specific as I can so that you know what I'm talking about. I also love the fact that you have an extended chord progression. Instead of just having those 4 chords, it goes into more, and especially when that re slides down into the second half of the chord progression. I really like that. That's one of my favorite parts, and that's pretty much the only.
Yeah, no,
notes
it's
that I
nice.
have.
It's super beautiful.
Yeah.
Emotional and all. I think as well one thing, because he's saying he's not sure yet if there's gonna be vocals on the drop. I think what would be cool is to not have complete full vocals over it, but just a few sentences, here and there, which is like the main thing, like the main theme of the song. The main vocal sentence of the song could be the title. That you just sing a couple times. I don't know. I think it'd be cool, but yeah, it's gonna.
Or
be
just
really,
chop
nice.
those vocals up, run them
Yeah.
through a vocoder if you want to, run them through a harmonizer if you want to, chop those vocals up and like do something interesting with the drop. But then again, it's gonna be primarily, all of these decisions are gonna be based on which genre you end up picking. Because right now it just feels like you're confused between going pop and confused between going deep house. So
But I think he wants deep house.
yeah, so I would say pick that for sure. I know what he wants, but I think just mentally he's going through that struggle, or they're going through that struggle where they're not being able to pick either one, especially with how much control they're giving to the vocalist. So I would say get that firm decision down and probably just experiment with both. Your call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one because we're almost at 20.
Yes.
Avishkar?
Avishkar. Yeah.
Great.
Did you know I've been out of it, trying to find my way back to your love? Fade away, we ain't blacking out. Hold on to the light, baby, because keep me up all night, keep me up all night, and I wanna be with you. Keep me up all night, you keep me up all night. I'm just trying to tell the truth. Keep me up, say keep me up, yeah, you keep me up. Keep me up, say keep me up, yeah, you keep me up. Give me more, cause we both been drunk. Keep me spinning round and round in love. Baby, stay, keeping me away. Please don't hesitate tonight, because keep me up, say keep me up, yeah, you keep me up. Keep me up, say keep me up, yeah, you keep me up. Keep me up all night, the truth. Keep me
Okay, it's a long track, so I'm gonna stop it here.
Sure. Yeah.
Interesting. I love the vocals. Personally, I love
Same
the
here.
vocals.
That's literally my first thing that I've written is that I love the vocals. Personally just love a really nice deep male vocal.
Yeah.
And secondly, you have really nice harmonies running on it, which are, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure, fermented, but
Yeah,
it
it's so
just
nice.
feels really
A
nice.
nice
It
added
fits
layer,
really
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Which works well with the vibe. The only thing for me is I think it's very monotonous, very repetitive. I think at 30 seconds you should like add something new. Just at least one element, maybe let it be like some hi-hats or whatever, another instrument or something, but try to show that it's moving on, because at first I felt that it was going to be this for like the whole song. Obviously there was some different parts here where you have more of a piano break, which is really nice to have. It was a nice little break and then you go back to it. But yeah, I'd have more different parts, like separate a bit more your different parts, add more things, remove some in some parts to make it a bit more interesting and less monotonous. I think that'd be my overall note, because overall the whole thing otherwise works. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I would say I everything that PLD said is like very similar to what I've written down. The only things that I have extra are in those sections. You have a lot of sections where you can play with because you have a really, really, really strong fundamental vocal, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sections where you can play with it. So especially in the first section where you go, keep me up, keep me up. Like where that is happening, almost like I would say increase the frequency cutoff of the bass that you're using, and add in some grace notes where it's going da 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 da, almost like play with that bass a little bit more. Plus, with the ranges that you have right now, almost having a harsher bass or like a more resonant bass, almost like a more aggressive reese would fit really well in the track. That
Yeah.
might also just be me because that's similar to how I would look at this track, and if I was reworking the track, how I would do it. But yeah, that can be really nice, and that can also give you a build up to a little bit more of an aggressive drop. Because right now, the only issue that I have is I saw the drop happen. It definitely needs to be louder. So does the lead in the drop. I think it needs to be louder because right now, your vocals are so primarily loud that
Yeah.
as soon as your drop comes in, it is really quiet compared to everything else. At least what I heard on my end.
Yeah.
So I would say pull the rest of the track up. I really love that you're giving the vocal the priority that it needs because it's a sublime vocal. But you still need to focus on your track and get the drop up, get the drop to feel like a drop. but I really love the stuff that you're doing. Experiment with like harsher sounds. All of it sounds really, really soft right now, so it's creating really nice contrast with the vocal. But when the vocal isn't there, it just feels like a really soft track, almost like the entire track just has a filter on it. So add some more harsh sounds in there. Percussion loops would be really nice for this as well. Just like grab a shaker and like shake it on your mic or on your phone mic. Phones record really nice shakers as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
All right, cool. Next up, we have Illinois. I don't think he's here, but I know he's gonna watch it. So let's go. It's just an idea, he said.
You make all of my dreams come true. You make all of my dreams come true.
Okay, yeah, I was checking because I was not even sure there was a kick, to be honest.
Yeah, the
But
kick is very low and is lacking sub
yeah,
information.
and I think exactly like yeah, there's like definitely some volume issues. Maybe yeah, too compressed. Maybe I don't know. I think here we can see as well. It's like I think here what pushes it is like your sub kick or something like this. But then it gets like so quiet, whereas it should do the opposite. It should like rise up until the drop. So a couple
Exactly.
things.
It might also be getting over limited. That's something that I could hear.
Maybe
It's really
yeah,
hard to hear over limiting,
yeah.
but it feels like it's almost at the verge of everything is being pushed too hard. And it might
Yeah.
just be a master thing. It might just be the fact that everything has turned too loud because you're
Could be many
trying to
different
achieve
things.
that
Yeah.
gain stage. I would say just try this. Take all of your FL stuff or all of your audio tracks, doesn't matter what DAW you're working in, and turn them
0.
down by
Yeah.
about 10 decibels. And then in your master, use a limiter or something to bring it up. Because then you'll see if it's just a limiting issue or you might be sending in your signals too hot. But you were saying something, PLB.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a volume issue here, so try to fix that, because that removes the whole power and energy of the song. But I was saying the vocals are definitely like super lost in the song. I would bring them back, so a bit louder. I don't remember.
You make all of my dreams come true. You make
Yeah, they feel a bit dry too, but don't put too much reverb. Yeah, I would definitely push them back, maybe boost them somewhere to have more clarity and so that they can pop more of the instrumental. But yeah, they're definitely getting lost here. The piano as well could definitely use some mixing. It's very dry right now. Maybe layer another piano as well so that you bring different vibes, because we can definitely see here it's like a very typical FL piano. But yeah, mix
I
this
would say
piano.
humanize the piano as well, since we're on that point.
Yeah,
Go in and change the velocities of a
velocity and
couple of
strum.
notes,
Yeah,
drag them forward, drag them back,
yeah.
make it a little bit more human.
Yeah, and in the drop for me, I was missing the mids and chords. I could definitely hear the bass. I think the leads could be pushed a bit higher. I mean, louder, sorry, and maybe some saturation, some layering as well. I think they could use a lot of layering work. But yeah,
It On my end, it almost felt like you turned the bass down for the build up, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you just forgot to turn it back up for the drop, and it just stayed there almost consistently where the low mids and mids were for the build up, which shouldn't be something that's happening. So I would say check where your bass is coming from, which sounds are resulting to that bass, and then maybe add a little bit more or turn it up a little bit or like balance it differently.
Yeah, but overall, it's a nice idea. Overall, it's a nice idea. Just need some developing and mixing and all that work. Oh, Nakimine, if you're still here, it's your turn. Help me, yes. We are.
Help me.
Love it.
They said mixing and mastering, right?
This good old Nakimine song. Honestly, super cool.
I can see this getting signed really quickly.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing really great at the moment too. He's been releasing a lot, signing and all. So, yeah. No, really cool. Obviously here, as you can see, your impact is really loud. So maybe just control that. I would like to give feedback on second part break. Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about the drop mainly. I think the leads could use a bit more saturation or some more layering so that they pop a bit more, because they're really interesting, they're really nice, but I think they should be more of a main element, so I would push them more a bit. And I felt like I listened again because I think the kick is being overshadowed by, I think you have a hat or a ride or something like this, which kind of overshadow it. And I don't know, I'm guessing sidechain in this case as well. But yeah, I would add more, like make sure your kick punches, through the mix, so that it has more impact. But yeah, otherwise, pretty freaking cool.
I can definitely hear the sidechain going on. I just think this might like straight up be an issue with the kick that you're using.
Maybe, yeah.
Because the kick seems like a very mid kick, and it doesn't have that high that comes through.
Yeah.
The sub seems fine in the kick, the mid seem fine in the kick, but it seems to be really short a kick. I would almost swap it out for something like a basketball kick. Like that just feels like a basketball bouncing on
Yeah.
a court, right? Because it needs a little bit more, especially in this genre, it needs that high-end information a little bit more to be able to cut through this stuff. Because as soon as you have anything with high-end information that comes through, like the clap that you have, it just speaks through everything else that's going through, especially when it's playing. So I would say turn that, swap that kick, try a couple of other ones, or if you know how to deal with phase cancellation, I would just say layer the kick with a top kick. But that is only recommended if you know how to deal with phase cancellation. Otherwise, just try different kicks, hot swap them out, see which one works.
Yeah.
And other than that, I would also say the clap when it comes through, and you also have a clap fill if I'm not wrong. It just stands out a little bit too much for me. Just turn it down maybe like half a decibel and add a little bit of plate reverb on it. Very minimal, like 3% to 4%. just to put it in the mix a little bit more because everything else is at a really good level. It just stands out immediately to me for some reason. And it sort of takes me out of the suspension of disbelief almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's a really nice track. I can see it getting signed
Yeah.
really quickly, but I think that these things are going to make it a little bit better for me.
Yeah, no. Awesome.
Yeah.
Feedback on second break. Well, there was
Can
no
you play the second
break.
break for me again?
Well, there wasn't a second break, but we're gonna go to someone else because
Okay, yeah.
there's it's been 2 hours and there's still like 10 more people, so I'd like
Ouch.
to continue because it's already too much.
Yeah.
And Claire and Electronic Sounds, for those reasons, it's closed. The submissions are closed because otherwise we'll be here until like 1 p.m.
But be sure to subscribe and hit that notification because PLV goes live quite often doing feedback sessions, and you always get really different guests, and they get to tell you a lot of cool stuff, even if PLV themselves tells you a lot of cool stuff. So be sure to stay subscribed.
This is the best producer guest, you know, doing my promotion.
Heck yeah, of course. Gotta be on that YouTube grind, right?
Yeah.
It's also free and it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. B3RZ, if I think you submitted, but I think yours was like, I think the 29th or 30th submission, you were like in the late ones, so you'll be one of the last ones, but your submission is there. And Nakimine, send me a message, like a DM, and I'll try to take a listen like in a couple days if you want more feedback, but I need to go to other people so that it's fair for
Same
everyone.
here. My DMs are also open. That's a really
Yeah,
nice track.
true.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind taking a look at it because it's not going to take that much time.
Yeah. All right, next. Whoops.
Overthink tomorrow when we're alright. That's why we forget just who we are. Make us come together and we're alright. That's why you remember who you are. Overthink tomorrow when we're alright. That's why we forget just who we are. Make us come together and we're alright. That's why you remember who you are. Overthink tomorrow when we're all just who we are. That's why you with it.
Okay, I was just going through to understand the arrangement because I was not understanding it. So I'm guessing these parts are supposed to be the drop. Yeah, it's a very subtle drop. I was expecting something, because here I thought it was still the breakdown, to be honest. So then here at this part, I was expecting it to give me more. I don't know if it makes sense. Did you feel that too? I think it's just in the
Yeah, I think
arrangement.
it honestly, I think it's just a mixing thing, which is why I've noted it down
Yeah.
because I really, really like the drop idea. And
Yeah.
I noticed that it was the drop, but it just needs to be like sort of slightly more isolated in the flow so that it
Yeah.
feels like it's the drop.
Yeah, because for me, I was really confused. I like the overall vibe and all. Like, it's such a vibe. It's really, really cool. But I was really wondering, and after, well, the end of the drop, I was actually waiting for more, which, like, I was waiting for the drop, which I didn't know was the drop. So maybe that's one thing to consider if other, regular listeners would think that. It might turn them off from from continuing to listen to your song. So, yeah, maybe you can give your notes on how to fix that.
I 100% agree with that because I really, really like the drop, as I
Yeah.
said earlier. So I want that to shine in the best light possible. You want to make sure that the drop elements are your drop LUFS. It might be the same amplitude, but you need to look at LUFS. LUFS is what we measure perceived loudness in.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that that perceived loudness of the drop is just slightly higher, at least 3 decibels higher than the moment before your drop. There's a lot of ways to fix it. There's volume automations that you can do. That is just reducing the volume before the loudness, even though that's before the drop, even though that's not recommended. You can add a quarter of a bar of silence in there as well, which
That's
also
true.
works.
Yeah.
Just a quarter might be a little bit too much for that particular song. It can be 1/8 as well, might work really well. For this particular song, however, I would also say I don't know if that was just Discord being funny because I did miss some sections,
Yeah.
but I would say try experimenting with 10 beats per minute or 20 beats per minute faster. It might change the vibe of the track a little bit, and it might be a little bit like cooler or a funkier track.
Or you
But
start like
that's just
this and then you go
hmm?
to a faster. Could be cool.
Exactly.
Be fun.
Yeah, that'll be cool. So that'll be nice. The vocals for me, you need to reprocess them a little bit. They're missing a bit of the like the high information for me. It almost feels like there's a filter there that has come in a little too close. But yeah, I love that lead. I want you to let that lead of the drop shine a little bit more because it's just my favorite thing, which is harmonic freedom, and just like plays with harmonics really well. Also in the intro and the first verse, this is my last point, I swear. I'm not extending this too much. But the intro and the verse, it felt like it was a struggle to try and sync up the kick and the vocals that are going on. It's not really offbeat, but I personally was having a really, really hard time trying to stick to the groove. So maybe try shifting the vocal a little bit back, a little bit forward. It might be working according to the metering, but for me, I think that is just a better way that it can be done because right now it's just not that for me.
All right. Next, Unsurger.
We were rolling with the waves, let them crash down on me, and you showed me the way. The best things in life are free, so it wasn't easy saying goodbye. Or would you believe me or call it a lie? 'Cause life isn't perfect, it's beautiful still. And love makes it worth it, and love makes it worth it. We didn't know that it was magic while we had it. I wish I could go back and change the way I acted. Sometimes a happy story has an ending tragic, but I'm still thankful that these moments even happened.
This is cool. It's different from what we had here.
Yeah, definitely.
It's nice.
Do you want to say your notes first?
Yeah, I've got some notes. I mean, the idea is really cool. Let's see. Oh, demo ready. Okay. So yeah, I think so. I'm gonna say all my notes. It's mostly mixing stuff because the ideas here, the arrangements there, the compositions there is pretty nice. You pretty much have everything. Just need some finessing and mixing to really make it sound good. So main thing that we often have is vocals are too quiet. I know you already knew that. It's somehow like I think you should say it again for producers, like why everyone puts the vocals too quiet? Because I've learned that from
It's
you.
exactly. It's a really common thing where a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially producers who are starting up and releasing tracks, they want their production to really shine through
Yeah.
because they think the production is the primary thing that should be coming through. So
But
whenever they add stuff like vocals and things like that, they often keep them too low because they feel like if the vocals are turned too high, the only thing that people focus on are the vocals, which isn't really the case. Yes, they recognize the vocals and they remember the vocals a lot more. But the rest of the track is what gives context to those vocals. But if the rest of your track is high and the vocals are low, they're not going to be listening to the rest of the track. They're
yeah.
still going to be trying to listen to the vocal and just get frustrated on the track. So instead, just give them what they want, which is primarily the vocal,
Yeah.
and just make really nice context for it and
It's
make spaces where your music shines through. Because
it's
you
it's
very clearly, in this
yeah.
particular case, have a drop,
Yeah, it's
which is a very
especially
nice drop
for
and has
this.
really nice elements. Have some fun with it, but let the vocal shine through a little bit more.
Yeah, it's especially for those type of music. Yeah, vocals definitely in the breakdown and all that should be the main element. But yeah, so that's one point. Then when your piano comes in, it's also like way too loud. So bring this back down and also control the lows and the muddiness of your piano because it's there's quite some yeah, some mud here and some low rumble. So do I never know which one it is, like high cut or low cut, or I don't even know. I never know the proper term for it, but anyway, remove the lows and around 400 hertz, bring back as well, put an EQ so that you remove that muddiness. Then, oh yeah, at 37 seconds, you should start to add more elements, and I was thinking maybe doubles because right now you don't have doubles or harmonies in your vocals. If it's royalty-free vocals that you took or something like this, I know usually it's hard, but with vocal doubler or formant and stuff, you can probably add some different things just to give something new for the ear to listen to and to add a bit more body to the vocal, which will help them stand out a bit more. So there was this. Love the saxophone. It's a really cool, how do you say, touch. But I really got surprised in terms of like I had no idea. It was so completely unexpected. So I think it'd be nice if you tease it a little bit here and there in the build up to just announce it a bit more. I think it would have flow better this way. So yeah, that was one point. Also, you have some bits of the vocals in the drop, which is great to have, but they're completely lost in the drop. So if you make space for that vocal, it'll help give it some more contrast as well in the dynamics and make it more interesting. So I think that could work well.
They're so lost that I didn't hear them clearly
Yeah.
through Discord. So
Yeah, I
if I
mean,
didn't hear them
also,
clearly through Discord,
yeah, it doesn't
then
help. Yeah.
people outside the club won't be able to hear them either.
Yeah, yeah. And then my last point is in this case, there was way too much bass in the drop. But yeah. And I think that was it for me.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, I'm going to be primarily focusing on the vocals as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's an issue with the vocals being too like less loud. I agree that maybe a decibel or like 1.5 decibels can come up. But the issue that I see here primarily is the fact that it's a male vocal. And it being a male vocals are really, really, really hard to mix because
Yeah.
they live in the low mids.
Yeah.
And when you have all of the other elements playing, like the piano, and you have a bunch of other stuff playing that as well, including keys. So when you have stuff playing like that, it clashes with the vocals a little bit too much. So I would say track space the track. That's going to be your saving grace for this track, particularly because you don't want to cut off those low mids when the vocal isn't there because that's just going to feel weird. But male vocals live in the low mids. And if you don't make space for them in the low mids, then those vocals are always going to be buried, even if you turn it up a little bit too much. And if you turn it up too much, you're going to be like, oh, why my shimmer and my high end is too high. So that's just going to be something that you're going to have to turn down later. So instead of doing it the opposite way, I would just say track space your track, use track spacer or Pro Multiband Dynamics or just TDR Nova if you want to do it for free. There's a lot of options to do that. But dynamically track space the low mids and one or two of the fundamentals that you have in the track. Also, one of my notes is the sax is really nice. It's pretty good. That's all. Like I just like the sax.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
nice touch. All right, now we have Nelvin. Let's go. I'm not sure if it's released or not, but let's go. That's nice. Oh, I love that chop.
Spinning in circles when we can't tell up from down. You used to get me high, but now you just let me down. And I would have followed you into the darkness. I got nothing else to lose. At least I could say I tried. I wish we could rewind back to when you were mine. But love's not enough sometimes. I just wanted you to try. One more time, just try. Even if our love is running cold, even if we both lose control, just try. It could be.
This is really nice. This is really nice. I love
Yeah.
the styles. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
overall, the composition, arrangement, creative idea, they're all here. I think he said, yeah, mixing, mastering stage, which is what we're going to focus on, basically, because the rest all works. So,
I don't have any notes for the rest of it, thankfully. So
yeah, no, exactly, same. So, but he knows what he's doing. Like, I know he's been doing some great stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, in terms of mixing, for me, at the beginning, there's a lot of low rumble and muddiness, like a lot of it. So I would definitely go ahead and check all your ambiances, pads, synths, pianos, and cut, all the lows, and also make space, like to remove the muddiness around 200, 400. Usually that's where it is. Because, yeah, it's unfortunately there. And once you clean this, it'll be so much clearer. And I think it'll work way better because it felt a bit messy in terms of the mix. Then one thing I'm not sure is the kick sample. Did you feel the same? I feel like it doesn't
Yeah.
matches the style, the vibe.
one of my notes is
too
the kick needs
subby.
to be swapped out.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I disappeared for a second here. I'm gonna come back. Hey, thank you. The snare as well, I wasn't sure, but less than the kick. Maybe it's because it needs a bit more of a reverb tail, which they usually have in this style. But I don't know. Yeah, but mainly the kick, which I'm really not sure. So yeah, I'll let you take the rest.
Okay. Couple of really quick notes. I completely agree on the muddy intro. That was the first thing that I wrote
Yeah.
down because I thought it was a Discord issue, but as
No.
soon as the primary vocal comes through,
Yeah.
you can hear that is clarity in there. So get that checked off. The second thing that I wrote down, there is a percussion loop that you're using. Like I went like this because I really wanted to hear what it was doing. It's almost a cut-off percussion loop that's just playing a little bit like offbeat slightly, which works because it's playing tuck 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 tuck, almost like that. I would love to see that band more to the stereo, almost on both sides. I almost like just split that out from the center to the sides because you have more side space at that point. And I really like what it's doing in the back end there. So just use that to reinforce the groove. For the drop, I felt your vocal was too loud. I would just for that drop, I would turn it down a little bit. I would try to keep that vocal to match the same amplitude as that electric guitar that comes in. Which, by the way, future bass and electric guitars go together really well.
Yeah.
I always like it when people do it because people need to do it more often.
Yeah.
I really like that. For that electric guitar in specific, there is a trick that I often use. If you own Little Alto Boy, add Little Alto Boy to that guitar. Don't touch the formant. Don't touch the pitch knob. Turn the drive up.
Yeah.
Because Little Alto Boy, the saturation isn't just saturation. It is also harmonically splitting your notes up and then adding extra harmonics in there, but based on your note. So turn that up because I want that guitar to be a little bit more split up, a little bit more harmonic so that it stands through. Also, your vocal in the drop is not getting sidechained. So when you swap out the kick, make sure that I understand vocals and sidechain doesn't really go together that often, but that is a rule that you can break in the drop. If you have a vocal in the drop, you still want to keep your fundamentals there. I have a feeling that if you just sidechain the vocal and turn it down a little bit, you won't have to swap out the kick because I think the kick is fine. It's not cutting through the vocals, which is why we feel like it's not coming through.
I just feel like it doesn't even match
sidechain that.
the vibe.
Yeah, so honestly, to be able to say if it fits the vibe or not, I would just have to hear it sidechained. Because right now the vocal is just overpowering it too much for me to the point where I don't even know what the kick is doing, if that makes sense. So I would judge it after that, but I have a feeling that you're right, that they're gonna have to swap out the kick for sure. But I would definitely say still sidechain those vocals in the drop, definitely. But I really love the track and it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, next we have B3RZ. If you're still here, it's your turn now.
Quick note before B3RC comes here. I know he's been waiting for a while, or they've been waiting for a while. I really like the fact that your track is really wide, but I would love for you to intentionally make it less wide in some sections so that when your drop comes in and it is completely wide, it feels a little bit more.
You can automate the build-up. Usually you automate the build-up
Exactly.
to more mono a little bit, and then
but in that particular track, it might also work to just have it less in some sections.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, next up. This is gonna be the longest feedback session ever so far.
Sorry.
All the same, love and war. I don't know what I'm fighting for. Darkness rules all around. Losing strength, there's no cure. I'm collapsing down to my core. Build me up and burn me down. But I'm coming back to life. A spark in the dead of night will light up the sky so bright. This time I'm coming back
this
just
is
say
gonna
I'm
be
really
definitely
jealous of the fact
yours.
that you're 13 and you're making stuff like this.
Wait, that's the guy who's 13?
Yeah.
No way. That is
I'm sorry.
insane.
I have to break character there for a second. I am just
I'm gonna stop him. Not. He started in 2020? Non, mais c'est pas possible. Sorry, I'm going French here because it's
I know.
impossible. That's what? That's like 2 years? Damn.
Holy crap.
Sorry, we're having a brain stop because it's just insane. I mean,
This is
to be honest,
probably one of my favorite tracks for the day. I have a lot of notes
Yeah.
for it, but
yeah,
it
I'm
is
sure you can probably help him a lot.
one of
this
my
is-
favorite tracks for the
Yeah,
day.
this is not too much my style, so I can't really say too much. The only thing for
Yeah.
me is I think that it's saturating a little bit, because the vocals, especially on the vocals at the beginning, which were like super loud. I felt like sometimes it was saturating, like distorting, like the bad thing that
It's
you don't
clipping.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah, clipping. But otherwise, that was all my notes. Insane. It's just insane.
I don't get it.
Go ahead.
I don't I don't get it. Sorry. Okay. No, I'm gonna be as subjective as I can about this.
Yeah.
And notes. Yeah, I have a bunch of notes. You were clipping. That's the first thing. You might not hear that you're clipping, but that's getting over limited. Your limiter is cutting off after frequency. I can see that very clearly because I have some meterings running on my screen, and you're definitely clipping. Turn that down. So again, I would say the same thing. Take all of your tracks, turn them down by 10 decibels. The entire mix. Just turn it down by 10 decibels. Which DAW are you using? Because some DAWs have issues with that sometimes. So if you can write that in chat for me, that'll be great, and I'll come back to this point. For those drums, a really nice technique that I've learned for epic drums, which I learned during my remix that I was doing for PLV, was use vocal doubler.
Oh yeah.
Get vocal doubler on those drums because you want those drums to be hitting both sides as well as the center. Get vocal doubler on those drums, mess with the variation. You're gonna have to really fine tune it in there, but it's gonna give you that epic feeling that you're going for a little bit easier. You're using FL. Okay. So in FL, everything other than your master and your sends, turn the entire thing down by about 10 decibels. I don't know if there's an easy way to do it, but I'm pretty sure you can just drag select all of them and then turn them down. Do not touch your buses though. If you have any buses running in there, do not touch them because that's gonna mess, because then the stuff inside the buses will go -20 technically because it'll be -10 and then -10. So don't touch your buses, but take individual tracks. It's going to take some time, but turn them down. Once you've turned them down, de-ess the vocal. Your vocal de-essing issue might be fixed when it's not clipping. But right now, the vocal S's are coming through a little harsh. Thankfully, there's only a couple of them, so you can actually just go in and manually do it as well. It'll be fine. Or just use sibilance by Waves, or there's a couple of free de-essers as well. Just use a de-esser, get those working nice. In the drop that you had, you have a lot of really nice, really fun elements playing. After it's like, once it's not clipping, they might already have the space that they need. But with genres like these, you want to definitely create space for all of those elements. So you will be going in there with separate volume automations and turning down stuff and turning up stuff when it comes through, just so that you're able to maintain that at a flat level so that they all come through with the same-ish energy and make space for each other. It is gonna take some time, but for a track like this, I would say definitely spend that time and actually give space to those elements. It's working out really well. It'll just push this slightly above to a track where a label would be really happy to sign it. Because right now it's just a little bit too much because some of them aren't exactly at the beat that like at the bar they're supposed to end at. The startings are fine and they match perfectly, but they don't end where they're supposed to, so they bleed into the rest of the elements sometimes, which for some elements is fine. But go in there with an automation or render them to audio and then just manually chop out pieces where you don't want it to be. But do that. Also, love the negative space that you're playing
Oh
with.
yeah.
After your like as soon as your drop, this your second part of the drop starts, you just have silence in there. I
Yeah.
love that. And then you come back in with everything. Love your lead melody. Everything is going really well. Just make sure things have the space that they need. Still envious that you're 13 and you're producing this, because that's when I started producing myself as well. And
That's insane. Yeah.
it's just fascinating. You're doing really well.
All
Just keep
right.
up the good work. Yeah.
Well, hope all that helps because that was a lot of detailed feedback. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because I couldn't just give like overall feedback on this one. I had to get really
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Faust, it's your turn. So it's an ID.
Yeah.
Is it recorded guitar?
Yes.
Oh, we cannot face the open road. We'll always wind up away. We're learning to accept what we can change. The story of our lives. We read between the lines. Story of our story of the sky.
Well, yeah. The build up and drop is definitely, yeah, as you say, old Millennium style, like so much. So just a sample, interesting. Yeah, because it has this recorded feeling.
Is that really just a sample?
Because if it's a sample, then I don't know. Maybe then there's too much reverb, because it feels a bit. It feels recorded. So maybe I'd
It
try.
feels recorded primarily because it's not fully in tune. It is slightly, the guitar is slightly out of tune
Yeah,
when that
but even
sample
in
was
the
recorded.
mix, I feel like it's a bit far. I would bring it back a bit more front by adding more clarity, um, all that stuff. But anyway, I think from the build up and the drop, it works so well. Everything's pretty good. Like, I don't have too much to say. I think that was just here,
The sky.
like the sky thing. It's cool, but it kind of felt out of the mix when I heard it. I was like, oh, I don't know. It kind of like surprised me, but like not in a good way. So I think if you mix it a bit more, with like a bit more saturation, distortion, reverb, layer it, maybe it will fit more in the mix, because it's a good thing to have here. But anyway, in the breakdown here,
The open road will always
yeah, all over here, all this part, I think it's a bit empty. So I would add more like pads, synth, electric guitar, which you add after, and definitely ambiances. Like if you want to go for the Illenium style, definitely add a lot of ambiances and also natural, organic ambient sounds like wind, birds chirping, waves, people speaking, like all those kind of stuff. Not exactly this, but just to give you the idea of what I call the natural organic ambiances. But it will bring life to your song, which Illenium does that a lot. It really makes it feel like alive, like sounds that you would hear being outside or whatever. But I think all these additions will definitely help fill out the breakdown intro that you have here. especially between.
But this is in the creator stage, right? This is not mixing and mastering.
No, it's an idea, so that's why. That's why
Idea,
I'm,
right? Perfect.
yeah, that's
So
why I'm not
I have
saying
like two creative ideas, I think. When it plays in the drop, I see that you're playing with the offbeat or the second beat story of. I would say do it twice, because it goes story of na na na. Or like I would just say do it twice and then let the third one ring out or something. Instead of just doing it once and then leaving that second space empty. I think that'll flow a little bit better. It might also improve the syncopation with the sky that you have there. Also, there are multiple guitars playing in this track, which is why I asked if you're a guitarist.
Yeah.
Is that also a part of the sample? Is it like the original sample that you found?
I think the rest is
Because
probably the session guitarist or something like this.
yeah, because the only thing that I would do, if you have them separate, I really, really, really hope that you have them separately available, because they need more stereo space. The way we mix multiple guitars is generally if like the different layers of the guitar are always going to be panned one to one side, one to the other side, which are playing different things, which is why in a lot of pop songs, when you go back and listen to them with good headphones, you'll always hear the guitars like being on the other side. So the intro, oh, just the intro and the rest is from a plugin. Perfect. Take those plugins and pan one of them to the right side, one of them to the left side, and just keep your primary in the center. So keeping your primary in the center makes sure that people can hear it, but keep having those on the right and the left doesn't affect the fold down that much. You might have to double check on that, but it's gonna let them stay separate while still being a part of the same thing, and you'll get the organic, almost like a band playing at a place feel, because the guitarist's speakers are also separated when you're playing in a band, because one's going to be coming from one side and one's going to be coming from the other side, so it just gives you that sort of a feel. That's all the notes I have on this one.
All right.
Yeah, really nice track, really nice Millennium
Yeah.
Millennium soundtrack.
Yeah. Guys, let me know if you're still in the chat waiting for feedback. I think maybe Remy is still. I'll jump to your track first before doing the other ones that might not be here, just to win some time. So
That's bad. We're already 30 minutes over time.
yeah, way more. Yeah, I think Remy's here, so I'm gonna jump to his first. I was at 27, so I'll remember that.
I've written that down, 27.
Because it's been so long already, so I'd like to prioritize people that are in the chat.
Yeah, Remy is definitely good. They just
Yeah.
said something in chat.
And Harry, okay, great. I saw yours, so we'll go right after to yours. I've noticed from the songs too, and thanks. It was the wait since it's currently 1 a.m. Oh my god, thank you so much to stay up
Go to
until
bed.
1 a.m. I'm so sorry, but thank
Go
you
to
so
bed.
much for joining, and hopefully, we were able to help you on this one. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
All right, Remy, let's go. It might be lo-fi. Yeah, I want lo-fi.
Nice.
Nice. So this is a great example for the natural organic sounds I was talking about before. gonna stop here just to stay fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I have a couple notes for it. So obviously I know lo-fi is always, more stripped down, more low-key and all. The only thing is, I think the intro of just natural organic sounds, was I think a bit too long. If it was like a lo-fi album, like the first track could be that, and then you go to the next track. But I feel like for an actual song, I would cut this intro in half and go a bit faster to the melodic elements. And speaking to the melodic elements, I think you could have maybe add a couple different melodic elements to bring a bit more. Yeah, it was, I think, a bit repetitive on the same elements, which, if you can have one, cut one, have something else, then add some more, just to have a bit more variations. But yeah, otherwise it's cool. It's definitely it definitely puts you in the scene of where you wanted it to take place. So it's really, really cool. And yeah, I think that was it for me. Like I was saying, maybe you could add some more of the tonal ambience, or a pad in the background, really or I don't know, just a string that is a lot in reverb, just to have a little bit of a blanket for your song. That's how I call it. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, that's very similar to what I had. I just have a couple of other mixing notes as well. One is I love the ambience that you're building. I often call it a soundscape that you
Yeah.
build. I think it has too many low mids, especially when you come right into where your fundamental track is gonna be. The low mids get immediately. I think there's someone walking at that step as well, and walking always
Yeah.
contains a lot of low mids.
Yeah.
Turn those low mids down. Maybe even especially in the second part when the ambience comes in, maybe even turn the ambience down a little bit. It might be a little bit too loud in some places. And the only other note I have for this is I would love to see a fundamental bass line playing through this. Other than the variation, because PLV covered the variation really well, and you should have some variation because the entire point of lo-fi is you want to be able to keep listening to the same thing on loop multiple times for a long amount of time.
Yeah.
But you have really nice fundamentals in there, but I want a bass fundamental because again, lo-fi is a genre where you really live through the bass, and bass always calms people down as well. That's a psychological thing for you. But also introduce a couple of variations in there. Maybe stop your primary. I know it's a Mandarin instrument. I'm missing the name right now. But
Yeah.
your primary lead that's playing there, the string, maybe stop that for a little bit or low cut that for a little bit. Just get more space in there. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, Armin, sorry. It's been already 2 hours and a half. It's going on for way too long. So yeah, I've closed it and I'm just doing the last ones at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was supposed
sorry.
to be a 2-hour thing, but I talked too much.
Yeah. But at least it gives a lot of good feedback, so
Yeah.
that's worth it. All right, so we have Harry next, and then we have Hermes DJ. And I think that'll be it because I don't think the last 3 ones are here, so I think I'll just stop for today because it's been too much. So yeah, let's do those 2.
I love the cat.
I was gonna say, I have to point that out. It's perfect.
Yeah, I love the cat. I knew you were going to pause for that as well. So
Yeah. All right. Oh, nice drops.
Lovers left lying in the dark, never beat by the lights or the dark. Across the world, across the ocean, you are, finding the lights back inside, will never die.
actually the artwork makes sense
Yeah,
because it's kind of like the meow meow, like a little bit.
exactly.
This is a fun one. This is a fun one. I don't have too much to say. I think in the beginning I heard like quite some low rumble muddiness, but um, I'm sure he'll fix that because I know what he does. So yeah, it's just an idea at the moment. So yeah, I think for me it's just maybe the drop. It's really interesting. It's fun and all, but I'd say a bit messy a little bit. Maybe playing
Yes.
with more of the down negative space, like you were saying. Maybe play a bit more with the side chain and everything. Maybe could help make it more clearer. But yeah, that was my main note, considering it's in the ID stage.
Yeah, I'd say mine is very simple. Where I really like the things that you're doing. That's why like I sort of turned my head down because I really wanted to focus on everything that you were doing.
Yeah.
I think you're doing too much right now. But it's perfect that your drop length is a little small. So what you can do is just make the drop twice as long as it is, or add a little bit more in the drop, just another 8 bars, and split up your ideas. Introduce one of the ideas, but you also, I think for you, it's just going to be prioritizing which idea you're letting through. The ideas are there and they're all really nice ideas, but too many really nice ideas playing at the same time just conflict the listener's ears because they don't know what to focus on. So split your ideas down, have one or maybe two of them playing at the same time once you've already introduced them prior to that, and then maybe introduce the rest of it stuff. I love the LFO work that you're doing on your superstars, but I would say that when you're pulling in that vocal, instead of having them do all of the LFO work, because the LFO work requires a lot of attention from the listener, but at the same time, you have the vocal that is fighting for attention as well. So that's why I'm saying like maybe splitting it up might be a bit nicer of an idea. In your first verse, before you switch to the almost filtered vocal, I felt that the high end in the vocal could be increased a little bit. It was a little bit less for me during that section. So you could probably turn it up a little bit, which will also help the vocal shine through a little bit more, and just a little bit track spacing. But as I think as PLE said, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just small things that you got to improve on a little bit. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Last one, Hermes DJ.
And they're also in the chat, so that's gonna be fun.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that the whole track?
I think that's an ID.
Yeah, no, I know, but wait, let's see.
What did they say?
I'm gonna check.
They're also there in the chat, so we can just probably
Yeah,
ask them.
that's why I asked. No, mixing mastering.
Interesting.
Yeah, the
Okay, so
arrangement
I
is
would say
interesting.
increase the track length, add some
Yeah.
more arrangement sections in there.
Yeah.
I have some mixing and mastering notes as well.
Yeah, for me it was just, over here and overall it's quite muddy and low rumble, so clean all that. And I just felt the build-up was a bit empty. It didn't bring enough, tension, and it didn't raise enough the energy for me. So maybe add a few more things, a few more effects to, hype a bit more for the drop, because it has a good impact. So yeah, go ahead for the mixing notes.
Yeah, I also wrote, this is besides a mixing note, this is just a rage note. I wrote in all caps, you better have a Daft Punk vocal in there.
Oh yeah,
Because
I heard
in the starting, I
Yeah.
felt like it was gonna have a Daft Punk
I
vocal,
know,
and I just
same.
felt
And then it
like,
disappeared. So how
yes,
was it for? Because there's just a little bit, and then nothing the whole rest of the track.
exactly.
So yeah,
I
true.
think that
Good
was the
point.
synth which sounded like a vocal in that part, if you can play it once.
Yeah, because also in the intro there was something weird just here where it's gonna raise like the pad. And then stop. See, it stopped here.
Yeah, it almost went like it almost went the dead mouse direction.
Yeah,
Like,
so
because dead mouse uses that quite often, just like slowly opening the filter.
but it's a bit for me it like surprised me in like a bad way. I was
Yeah,
like,
it
what's
shouldn't
happening?
go back down that quickly.
Yeah. And the vocoder thing. Yeah,
That is a vocal for
I
sure,
swear.
yeah.
I was like, where's the rest? Because I want those vocals if you're gonna have them.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
want a Daft Punk vocal in there.
Yeah.
But other than that, my mixing notes are swap out your kick in the verse section. So your kick sort of works. I would also say try a different kick in your second drop section for sure. But your kick sort of works decently well with the first one. But as soon as you go out of the drop, your kick just stands out a little bit too much. Swap that out, try a couple of other things, or maybe just have different kicks for different sections. That's not that bad, especially in this genre. But I would also say like add B sections, make this like a full track instead of keeping it limited to this right now. Because I just thought of it as an ID. But yeah. Those are my notes. Ray Shield, I don't think we're taking more submissions.
Yeah, no.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so racial submissions are closed. But I was asking previously who's still waiting for feedback and are in the chat. So Nicholas Bembrick, you said you're 27. Then we'll do yours.
Also, sorry for keeping you waiting that long, Nicholas.
Yeah. It's a nice intro.
Count the shoes at the door. There's one more pair than before. The walls replete with stories made. They line the hall in picture frames. I once was scared of all my fails. I was running from the clock itself. I once was lost, but now I'm found. All it took was your quiet heart. When you came in, I didn't ask you to stay. I didn't ask you to leave your heart on my shore. But without chagrin, you gave the keys to your door. Now I'm wearing your shirt that was strewn on my floor. What a mess we've made.
Okay. Is it me or might be out of key here and there?
Nothing stood out to me too much. It might be a little like
Some
one or two
chords in the
places,
vocals. Yeah.
but that might just be the fact that the vocals haven't been tuned.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely, vocals need mixing. I mean, obviously, this song needs quite some mixing work and also adding a few more elements so that you
Yeah,
have
I don't
more
think
that
it's at the
carries.
mixing stage yet. I think
Yeah,
you need to build with more elements right now. Because like
yeah,
in sections, there are sections where you just have one piano playing and it's also not got any reverb in it
yeah.
and
It's
the
very
vocals there
dry.
as well.
Everything's very dry.
Exactly.
So,
So
yeah,
atmosphere, build a little more atmosphere, add a
yeah,
little bit more elements. Don't overdo it because you still want to keep your vocal as primary.
yeah,
Also tune the vocals in properly. The vocals are nice, can be really, really nice, but I can see right now to me what it feels like is you've received the vocal from a vocalist and you've just dragged it into the project. So it's there, but like I can clearly hear that it's not EQ'd or it's not like put into the track or adjusted according to the track. And it sounds like you're building a track around the vocals, which often leads to using less stuff because we think the vocals going to do a lot of the work for us. So add more elements in there. In fact, at times I would say while you're producing, mute the vocal completely and see what elements are you missing at what places and then bring in the vocal and
yeah,
see what changes you can make to that. I would say have a stronger base fundamental track and then pull in the vocals rather than having the vocals and then building a good track around it because that takes a lot more farsight if that makes sense. But yeah, that would be my primary tip. I would say it's too early for a vocal. You should like try and mute the vocal and then build a track and then pull the vocal in later if that is how you work. If you know and you've worked on stuff before where you've built around a vocal and you know how that workflow works because it's a little bit of an advanced workflow, then for sure go ahead and do it and you can ignore what I'm saying. But it still needs more elements. That's essentially what it comes down to.
it's funny what you said about the fact that building around vocals is an advanced technique because that's how
Yeah.
I learned it.
Exactly. Because you often miss out on things. If you haven't built tracks from scratch,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
miss out on elements that can be there
Yeah,
when you build the track around vocals. At least that's what I've personally seen.
yeah. But yeah, just keep at it. Keep adding stuff. I think maybe also use some reference tracks. It'll be really really helpful when you're at this stage. But yeah, um,
Definitely. I a lot of people like take reference tracks like as really underrated and
oh yeah,
they help a lot,
yeah,
especially when you're still learning. It helps you. I use reference tracks till dates. In fact, I do projects where
yeah,
I've showed PLV these projects where I pull in a track that I really like, and just gonna break down everything that's happening in the track in my DAW so that I know what they're doing, so that I can do that in my tracks, stuff like that.
yeah. Just a sec. It's interesting as well because I know sometimes, most of the time, people and like beginner in general, they hear all the time, use reference track, but they don't really know how. So usually I just bring in like 3-4 tracks in the bottom of my project and I just mute, and compare. What I do as well before is that I have a whole list of what I like in those reference tracks, what I listen to, and what I think I could add, what I could take from, or how it sounds. And then when I'm at the mixing mastering, I just, I go back and forth between mine and theirs and listen if I have too much bass or not enough, too much highs or not enough, all those kind of things. So that's usually how I use them. Um,
It almost feels like a video that should be coming soon on the PLV channel. How to use reference
it almost
tracks.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually on my list because there's so much to say about it. But yeah. Anyway, this is officially the last song, I think, so might as well do it
Yeah.
if that person will watch the live replay. So let's do it. Because we're almost at 3 hours, so let's make it 3 hours, right?
Yes. 4 minutes.
Good. That's nice.
think we're gonna have very similar notes for this one.
Yeah, very similar because it's also at a beginner level, I think, which is okay. We all started there. So to help you go to the next stage, all the basic stuff, you know, like I think even before adding more elements, which is gonna then make it harder to mix, I think you should focus on setting your volume levels properly, because like the leads are way too high, way too loud. I think there was the kick or the clap snare, something like this. So make sure that everything has its own, not space, but like you know, there's this pyramid. Like your main elements should be like the vocal, leads, kick, then all the like, you know, next drums or instruments, then FX, ambiances, you know, all that. And I think the main thing as well is sound selection, because the lead definitely, for example, feels very I don't know how to describe it, like almost fake, like, you know, it's not like
It's a super saw.
Yeah, but like it's a
it's
very
literally just a sawtooth.
it's
that-
very
that
robotic,
they
like, you know, very electronic
Yeah.
in terms of you can say like it's a computer doing this, whereas if you choose better sounds that sound a bit more pleasant for the ear and a bit more organic, you can get a better sounding lead. For this, the best thing is using reference track, as I was saying earlier. So I think those 2 points will definitely help you get there. And once you're at a better level in terms of like creative, you know, I forgot what I wanted to say. You can add more elements because it's a bit empty at the moment. So yeah, but keep going. You'll get there the more you do it. So yeah.
Exactly. It's just about doing more of what you're doing and
Yeah.
learning from every mistake that you make,
Yeah.
because you'll all literally every track you're gonna do something and you're gonna be like, okay, that definitely does not work. And then you know that does not work, or you find out stuff that does work. Like for me, you spoke about the lead sound selection. The primary sound selection note that I had was your first ARP that comes in is very interesting, but is lacking a lot of melodic content. I would say layer that ARP with another ARP, probably playing the same thing, just adding a little bit more melodic content in there rather than just being almost like a percussive hit.
We're missing
Another
chords
thing
as
that you
well.
should really look into would be improving the track flow and the transitions in the track. I don't mean just FX transitions, they help a lot. They can be really overused though. I would say try and figure out a way to get your track to flow smoothly between one track to another. There's a lot of videos on there. You can listen to a lot of reference tracks, as PLV said. There's things that they do to make sure that your song goes from one part to the other part really smoothly, and that's something that you can really work on right now. I would also say your lead gets really loud in the build-up. In fact, I'm pretty sure it increases in amplitude or the volume. So try and keep that consistent because it gets really loud and it's dry and loud. So it doesn't really add to the atmosphere. But in the drop also it gets very loud. I feel like it can be reduced a little bit. But other than that, I think the primary thing that this track is missing completely is the use of sidechain. Uh, I couldn't personally hear sidechain. If it's happening,
I think it might
it's not
be-
happening with the
I
kick.
think it might be also later next stage. Like it's a bit
Yeah.
more advanced a little bit.
Yeah, but sidechaining is something that you should definitely look into
Oh
because
no, for sure.
you're in the 4-to-floor genre, so
Yeah.
you can also just use simple plugins like Kickstart or STFU by Zeek Audio, which is completely free. But get that sidechain going so that your kick and snare, the things that keep your elements to the ground, come through a lot more. It's a game changer and it'll help you maintain that groove a lot more. That's it. That's all my notes.
All right. Well, I think that concludes our very long feedback session.
3 hours.
So yeah, thank you TG for joining me on this one. Thank you to everyone
issues.
who joined as well, and to the last 5 ones that are with us right now. I know it's been
Yeah.
a very long time. Thank you for everyone, to everyone that is rewatching the live as well. I hope all our feedback was helpful for you guys. And yeah, now we're gonna go rest our ears because I am tired. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow in a new YouTube video. So yeah, Bye, and thank you,
Definitely.
everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so
Bye.
much for your submissions. It was really nice being here and listening to them. You guys are doing really well. And just keep at it. Make
yeah.
more stuff, release more stuff. So,
All right, bye, guys.
bye-bye.